Let's go sandbag. Let's talk a little bit about exactly what we want to learn about sandbags. If we want to go heavy to shoulders, we want to talk about throwing them. If we want to talk about D-balls, what are we thinking specifically? What comes up the most often? What's the hardest to deal with? Now, details around where that sits in your hips is particularly important. If I sit that sandbag in my hips, I'm now at the mercy of my humping power to try to launch it all the way up. Yeah, which is going to be pretty futile after a while. Okay, one of the keys when you're doing any sort of dynamic movement is always to have an element of control, particularly when it's a unique object. So, conversely, if it's up here, and now I try to sit this guy as high up on me as I possibly can, then I can hug that up here. I'm going to take the shoulder at which I'm going to put the sandbag on. That's going to wrap over top. I'm going to hug the other arm, and then I'm going to keep my left arm on that the whole time. Okay? You're going to hug that up your body. It adds a layer of consistency to what you're doing. Okay? Now, these sandbags, one of the big challenges is just simply picking them up off the ground when your hands get sweaty and whatnot. Okay? So we don't want to think about anything to do with our fingers when we're picking these up. Okay? That is going to lose grip pretty quickly. Our goal is going to be to get as much of our forearms underneath as possible. Okay, so if we were doing this fast, we would shuffle it a couple of times back and forth until we can come here. Again, we're over the top with our dominant arm, and we're helping push around with our non-dominant arm. Okay, going to be a lot of individual feedback on this guy. Otherwise, any questions there? Does that mostly make sense?
The hug up, you're still using your hips a little bit.
Of course. 100%. Yeah, you're using your whole body and adding a consistency by pulling that in with your arm. The important bit is that you never let your arms off of it to try to get that up to your shoulder. Yeah? Cool. All right. Any questions about any of that? Are we keen to get warm and start moving a little bit? Yeah?
We're keen. Super keen.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Okay, let's pretend that this bag is much heavier. Yeah? Because, pause, go down. Just mogging the bag is, we're not going to learn much today. So, I'll practice on this one because it's a bit weird. If it's a heavy bag, think about the friction of your hands squeezing versus the friction of your hands actually being underneath. Okay, so this is where, when we get into really high rep workouts, or we get into heavy workouts, eventually you're going to get sweaty, eventually chalk's going to come off your hands, and this is not going to be a successful strategy. Okay? All of these bags are small enough that you can get your hands over each other and you can even interlock your fingers. So take that extra second and literally roll it up onto your hands on both sides a couple of times until my hands are under, and now it's just a deadlift. Okay? Then when you're cleaning it from your hips to your shoulders, I don't want that period of time where your hands come off it. Okay, never. At least one hand on it. So if we're going to left shoulder, left arm has to go 10 o'clock over the corner of the sandbag. So then now we have leverage with our hips and with our top arm to pull that up. And we're not going to have the inconsistency of catching it at slightly the wrong spot and it throws you, or you throw it off the back of your shoulder.
Other arm is staying wrapped rather than, I kept wanting to make it come underneath, so I was like this then to then roll up.
Not horrible until it's hard or heavy, in which case bicep is going to hate you. Yeah? So if we're at 10 o'clock, we want to come all the way around the other side. Okay? Big hug, we're over the top and here, and we're up here. Okay? Now, this guy is still going to be a support on the bottom once you're up here, but you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to curl it. Yeah? All right. I know you can mog it. Much better. Good. Good. 10 o'clock. Hug. Okay. Look at this shape of the bag, right? If you're trying to lift it this way, it's going to be very long trying to get it all the way around. If you're here, and we go over top, and we go around, Now, that's a much easier roll where you still have one hand on the whole time. Okay, so you were like at 12. We want 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? Correct, like 10 and 2 driving.
Okay.
Yeah? Over the top, around the corner. Yeah? Now, the further around you can reach, the better off you are. Another tip for these guys. If you think about your quads and where your quads are going to be the highest, as if they're closest together, right? So if I take this bag and I have nice wide feet and I sit down, I've got that bag all the way down, and now I'm trying to work it all the way. If I'm here, that bag is on my chest, right? Get those feet nice and close together. It will rise it up and it'll sit it on your sternum, not on your waist. Okay, bring your feet together. Good. Cool. Now, just one motion from the lat position, that's perfect.
The number of times I had to hold a sandbag here and then give it a little.
Sit down. No. Go back to that position that you're in when you're at your stomach. Yeah, but you're stopping to then get your hands in the right position. If you did that from your waist, you'd be perfect.
No, this one's like 190-ish. Yeah. It's full. That's close. Yeah, fully
Okay,
full.
get this arm over top. Good. Now this arm around the bottom, okay? Around the bottom half like you're hugging it still. Yep. Okay, now thrust the hips and pull it all the way up. Shoot the hips under. Okay. Good. Okay, now another lesson with this. Come out here. We work against gravity the most when we're pulling straight up here, right? So if you can fully commit to cleaning that up your body when your torso is there, much better. So then you extend all the way through, and now we're not pulling it straight up with our arms, we're rolling it up our body. So get used to hips through and onto your toes. Yeah? That was much better. All the way away from our body and around. Yeah? So consider that and think that it's probably best for you to sit it nice and flat so that you turn the flat bit onto you, and now we can just turn it around your head. Okay? All right. Let's see. Now the tip I gave the other guys is if we sit with this down into your lap and our feet are really wide, the bag is going to sit fairly low, right? So as soon as you bring your feet in close, that's now up on my chest, and it's just a standing around. Where if my feet are wide, I need to thrust that all the way up and try to work it all the way up my torso.
Your arm like all the way.
As far as possible, over either 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, depending on if you're going right or left, because we're talking about leverage, right? So the further that's around, the more leverage you have. Where I could stand up with that guy, if it didn't slip on my shirt, I could stand up and hold it right here if my hand's around the bottom. Yeah. Now, when it comes to this stuff, depends on the kit you're wearing today, but if you do this, you have to chalk your shirt. Yeah, like the slipping of the bag on your shirt is not a technical error, it's just an equipment failure. Yeah, so friction here is particularly important. But yes, hand all the way around, support hand hugging the bottom half of the bag. You start that nice and high in your chest, you stand up, hips go forward. You're thinking not to pull the bag up your chest, but to shoot your hips under the bag. If you shoot your hips under the bag, now we're up a 45 degree rather than up a 90 degree. Yeah? That's it. Yes. Particularly when hands get sweaty or you get tired. But picking up these bags, what were you just deadlifting?
145.
Okay. So when we pick up these bags, if you try to squeeze with your fingers underneath, it's going to be really, really hard. Okay? Now, if you can get yourself used to getting all the way down to the point where your fingers are together, you're gonna be better off. So if I'm thinking of this sandbag and I'm tired, we're getting that rolled as far onto my hand as possible and as far back and back and back until my hands are now there. So I'm not using my fingers anymore. Now I'm using my forearms. We also get back to chalk, chalking all up the forearms, particularly liquid chalk that doesn't come off super easily. It makes miles difference. Yeah, chalk, you see me compete, I'm like snowman, like everywhere chalk.